Good morning, everybody. It's the 31st of October, and this is AI with Kyle. We're going to be covering the latest AI news and updates of the day. Relatively quiet day today, except for one big rumor, extremely big rumor. OpenAI, the creators of ChatGPT, run by Sam Altman, are laying the groundwork for an IPO, an initial public offering, meaning they'll take their company from being privately owned to publicly owned and tradable on the stock market. This is still a rumor, but it's coming from a number of sources within OpenAI, and apparently they're eyeing up an IPO at a $1 trillion valuation, which I believe, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I think that might be the largest IPO ever. Let's check that though. I'm pretty sure that's going to be it. Oh no, I'm very wrong on that. There have been several much larger ones, including finance companies, mainly in Saudi Arabia. I'm very surprised about that. Okay, so San Francisco, OpenAI is laying the groundwork for an initial public offering that will value the company at $1 trillion. Oh, I'm sorry. 1 trillion. Yes, it is the largest by a huge amount. A valuation of $1 trillion. Three people familiar with the matter said that could be one of the biggest IPOs of all time. This is me mixing up the billions and the trillions. I do apologize. I should know better by now because we're dealing in the trillions now with AI. OpenAI is considering filing with securities regulators as soon as the second half as 2026. So about 1 year from now. Some of the people said in preliminary discussions, the company had looked at raising 60 billion at the low end. And likely more, the people said. They cautioned that talks are early and plans, including the figures and timings, could change depending on business growth and market conditions. So if this is true, it's going to be one of the largest, if not the largest IPO of all time. And I imagine people who get in early on this are going to make a huge amount of money. So there'll be lots of people, I'm expecting, lots of people asking how to get in and how to get early access to this deal, but we still have about a year to go. So Chief Financial Officer Sarah Fryer has told some associates the company is aiming for a 2027 listing, but some advisors predict it could be even sooner, around late 2026. An IPO is not our focus, so we could not possibly have set a date, the OpenAI spokesman said. We're building a durable business and advancing our mission so everyone benefits from AGI. So remember that at the beginning of this week, we found out that OpenAI, the creators of ChatGPT, had finalized moving from a non-profit organization to a for-profit organization. This has allowed them to raise more money, to put more money into GPUs, into training, into running the company. So they are constantly bringing in more and more cash. That was limited by being a not-for-profit company, a non-profit, because it's hard to get the profits and the fruits of your labor back to the investors when you're a non-profit, basically. This seems to be the next step. So an IPO will allow many, many, many more people to invest publicly in ChatGPT. And that first IPO, they're aiming at 60 billion as a raise. And then going from there. So this is all to allow them to continue to pump money into the development of OpenAI and their models, and to hopefully get to AGI. It's also about making money. There's no two ways around that. We can be cynical about this, but I think there are good reasons, which are they need additional cash to keep going. This does raise the question of, is it possible just to spend your way to AGI, or do we need something different? At the moment, it's just about throwing a huge amount of cash at it, making sure you have enough GPUs, enough electricity, enough training power, and then also adding on bits of architecture, continuing to research. But the majority of that cash is just being thrown into training right now. Whether or not that takes us to AGI, we do not know, but that is the big bet. But this is also a company that's not really making a profit yet. So with analyzed revenue rate expected to reach 20 billion by year end, losses are also mounting inside the company, the people said. During a live stream on Tuesday, Altman addressed the possibility of going public. I think it's fair to say it's the most likely path for us, given the capital needs that we have, i.e. we need more cash. IPO preparations following major restructuring. So it started out as a non-profit in 2015. This has been what Musk has been shouting about for the last few years. A few years ago, the company overhauled its structure so that the non-profit would have oversight and control over the for-profit arm. So I showed a diagram on Tuesday or Wednesday, which showed the non-profit and the for-profit, and they are connected. The main goal of the non-profit was to ensure that OpenAI developed AI technology safely rather than prioritizing profits like a traditional company. But this week, OpenAI revamped itself, so it has shifted. So it is still controlled by a non-profit, now called the OpenAI Foundation, but the non-profit has a 26% stake in OpenAI Group and a warrant to receive additional shares if the company hits certain milestones. So a warrant is optional. It does not necessarily trigger, but they are allowed to receive those additional shares if they hit additional milestones. This change makes the non-profit a significant stakeholder in OpenAI's financial success. So they now have a non-profit that owns 26%, it has a 26% stake plus warrants for more of the for-profit version. But it's the for-profit company that will be getting the investment and getting the IPO. I'm pretty sure. I don't. So yeah, it must be. Doesn't say here, but you take your for-profit company public because, well, it seems obvious. I'm saying it seems obvious. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's obvious. Someone correct me if I'm wrong there, but you do it with the for-profit company because you have an uncapped profit potential there. So yeah, we may have an OpenAI initial public offering within the next couple of years, and it looks like the largest IPO of all time, which is very exciting. It will also fuel the narrative that we have a bubble, a financial bubble, which is, interestingly, I was reading an article by Nate B. Jones today, and he was talking about the bubble is the real bubble. So it's become almost trendy to push the narrative that we have an AI bubble. And we need to remember that there's a difference between a financial bubble and a technological bubble. With a technology bubble, we've seen this before with, Web3 is probably the most recent. So crypto technologies, NFTs. NFTs are a great example here, where people get in behind the technology, say that this is going to change the world, revolutionize everything, and then the technology itself doesn't deliver. It doesn't find a use case. It doesn't find a general public market. NFTs are a good example of that, where the technology itself is a bubble and it is connected to a financial bubble. I would argue that with artificial intelligence, generative AI, our modern AI, that is not the case because we are using AI on a daily basis. It has a huge adoption rate. I think ChatGPT alone is about 10% of humanity. It means it's useful. There's a reason people are using it. And that is very different to a financial bubble because, like the internet, we had a financial bubble and a financial crash. But out the back of the dot-com bubble and boom, we had the internet. So I think that's probably more likely what's going to happen here. We might have a financial correction, might be a big financial correction, but the technology itself is sound. Extremely good, in fact. I'm going to hop over to some questions, if there are any. I'm still away on holiday, as you can probably tell from the background behind me. So my setup is not ideal. I'm having to reach over to TikTok, who's balanced against a window up here. But that is fine. I don't see any questions right now. Oh, here we go. And what about the tokens, though? Won't they run out of tokens? You mean the large language model tokens? Who? ChatGPT? I mean, they make the tokens and they provide our tokens. But do you mean like capacity for AI? That will be from GPUs and data centers, which is what a huge amount of this money is being thrown at. So we have this rather quite problematic relationship where we have OpenAI, who are connected to NVIDIA, who are building the chipsets, and Oracle, who are running the data centers. And the money is pretty much going in a circle between these two companies, with the companies investing in each other and then buying from each other and maintaining this momentum. Yeah, there are financial problematic cases to be made here. But in terms of our capacity, it's just going up and up and up and up. And the more money is spent on these, the more time and energy is spent on research as well, making the GPUs more effective, making the data centers more efficient, working out sustainable energy. So this is what China is doing in particular. They realize that their energy usage is going to spike because of AI. Therefore, they're investing heavily into sustainable energy. And we're also seeing the reactivation of nuclear power plants and potentially building new nuclear power plants too in order to power these data centers. So all of this leads to more tokens. Funnily enough, tokens, we use tokens because it's efficient. There might be other structures in the future. There probably will be other structures. But right now, tokenization is the way we train the models. That will not necessarily be the case moving forward. It's just convenient right now. Cool. So I'm going to talk about, what have we got? Yeah, let's talk about George R.R. Martin. So there is a new lawsuit, and there will be many, many more to come. This one is being spearheaded by George R.R. Martin, who, with a number of other US-based authors, I think, are suing OpenAI for copyright infringement. So George R.R. Martin in particular has said that he's managed to generate paragraphs and chapters that are very similar to what he would create, which has led a lot of people to make the very obvious joke of, well, can you use it to finish your book, please, George? So he's busy suing OpenAI at the moment, and a judge has allowed this case to go ahead. So it is pushing forward, and there will be a lawsuit. So OpenAI has a motion to dismiss, and that has been denied. So it is going to court, and it is being spearheaded by George R.R. Martin. And I just saw this Reddit post, which I thought was interesting because of the kind of the main caption here. Just like the suicide case that triggered all the rerouting and guardrail tightening, which happened, well, with GPT-5, we got the guardrails been tightened significantly compared to 4.0. This kind of crap will potentially limit ChatGPT from talking about major IPs, limiting character and story breakdowns, lore discussion, and definitely fan fictions. Honestly, just for a period of time, just like this time, rather than indefinitely. So this is how we progress. It's going to be a friction between opening up these models, taking off the guardrails and saying, have fun, go nuts. And then the societal pressure kind of saying, well, actually, no, this is problematic, this is causing psychosis, this is stealing from authors, this is whatever the negatives that come from the models are. These frictions will help to sand off the rough edges. So this to and fro is actually quite healthy for the development of AI. And people tend to take very black and white positions, like, oh, we need our AIs to be completely unfettered and to be allowed to do whatever they want. That's one position. Or we need tight guardrails, and we need to analyze these models before they're released. We need to clamp down on all of these negative usages. The reality is OpenAI and all the other AI companies in the middle will just have to try their best to steer between these two extremes and rely on the fact that there is going to be friction like this, and it's going to help them to basically sand off the edges and lead us to safer models. So you'll always see the narrative discourse with people yelling at each other about this, which you don't need to personally engage in because it's not very helpful, it's not very healthy, but understand that the whole process of people yelling at each other, suing each other, trying to tear each other's heads off about this kind of stuff is actually quite healthy. We need this competition in order to work out what we want this technology to look like in the future. So we'll see, we'll keep track of how this is going. I too wish that he would just finish his book instead of getting embroiled in a lawsuit, but I heard a theory the other day that there's no way he's going to finish it now because of how the TV series got mucked up. And it's just too much pressure on him to try and release something that remedies that. So no, just release it posthumously, excuse me, which is probably the case. What does Microsoft get from OpenAI becoming publicly traded? So on Tuesday, OpenAI is converting to a for-profit company. As part of that deal, Microsoft own, I want to say 26%. We'll look it up. 27%. 27% of the for-profit company. So when there's an IPO, Microsoft already owned 27% of that particular company, and as the stock price presumably goes shooting up, they will take part in that uptick as well. So that was part of the conversion, because previously when it was non-profit, they had, it's very complicated, but a capped profit sharing agreement where they had the right to take 49% of OpenAI's profits. Of course, OpenAI wasn't making any profits, and it had a certain cap as well, so the limitation, and there were certain strictures about if and when artificial general intelligence was reached as well, and debates about what that actually meant, and whether or not the company would split, etc. It was all very complicated. Now that's kind of been simplified, and now Microsoft just own 27% of OpenAI's for-profit arm. So when they go to the IPO, they already own that chunk, so that they'll do fine. They'll do absolutely fine. Okay. Sora. So we heard a few days ago that Sora has opened more widely in the US, Canada, Korea and Japan, and they basically opened up membership. You did not need to have a code. Unfortunately, if you're in the UK or the EU or anywhere else in the world, doesn't matter, it's still hard to get into. What they've done now, alongside, is they have allowed additional monetization of Sora. So I don't think this was a mistake, the timing here. So we are launching the ability to buy extra generations in Sora today. We're doing this for two main reasons. First, we've been quite amazed by how much our power users want to use Sora. Read that as, oh my god, they're overusing it, they're burning our servers down. And the economics are currently completely unsustainable. So the power users are just hammering the servers, and OpenAI are eating that. They're having to spend a lot of money, because remember that video generation is incredibly energy intensive compared to text. We thought 33 gens a day would be more than enough, but clearly we were wrong. This will let our pro creators get as much usage as they want to pay for, so you'll be able to pay per generation. Second, this is a step towards a new Sora economy. We imagine a world where rights holders have the option to charge extra for cameos of beloved characters and people. We will soon pilot monetization, prioritizing people and companies who got onto the platform early. This will also be a way for a new generation of Sora creators to make money. Interesting. So they hinted about this shortly after they cracked down on IP usage. So initially when Sora was released, you could basically generate anything. And this is classic OpenAI release tactics, where they release it without any guardrails, pretty much say go nuts, because that gives them the viral moment of people saying, oh my god, this is the best thing on earth. You see lots of viral videos on social media, and it bigs up the product and it helps you have a nice healthy launch. Then a week later you say, actually, we need to rein back on this a bit. Just as companies like Disney are starting to knock on your door being like, how come we can generate Mickey Mouse and the Mandalorian and all of our beloved characters? So you give free rein for about a week, then you shut the doors basically and say, okay, no, you may not generate intellectual property, you may not create likenesses of celebrities, etc, etc, etc. At the same time, they are rolling out the cameo ability, and they've said, that this is the rumor, they've said to large companies, if you want, you can place your characters in Sora as a cameo, and you will be able to release that to creators, and you'll be able to monetize it. So Disney's a bad example because they probably won't go for this, but we'll use this. Disney could potentially allow you to put the Mandalorian or whatever Star Wars character inside of your Sora generation, and every time you do that, you pay a certain amount. or a certain amount is paid to Disney. So it allows them another way to monetize their intellectual property. This looks like we're moving towards that inside of Sora. It will also be a way for a new generation of Sora creators to make money. So I guess if you are somebody who's got your face, if you've made your face popular on Sora, there's a couple of people at OpenAI, for example, then people could pay you to use your face. Like, I don't really know how that works. Eventually we'll need to bring the free gens down to accommodate growth. Okay, so they're also saying if you're not paying, you're going to lose your 30 a day. We won't have enough GPUs to do it otherwise, but we'll be transparent as this happens. In the meantime, enjoy the crazy usage limits. So free users get 30 generations a day, pro users get 100 generations a day, and then what they're going to start doing is allowing you to buy more generations. So you can buy more than the 100 a day, and then they're going to start to decrease that 30 a day for the people who are not paying. So they're shifting this quite aggressively towards a paid model. So I would be interested to see how many people are still using Sora, because we had that initial burst of energy where it was really exciting, and my DMs on TikTok and Instagram were just people saying, give me a Sora code, I need a Sora code, where's the Sora code? Hundreds, no, several thousand people asking, I need a Sora code. That's died off. And I know that's very anecdotal, but that suggests that the public interest in Sora it peaked and it started to die off. I do not know the numbers, I do not know how many people are still using Sora, but apparently it's still costing them an awful lot of money. So they're going to need to monetize. Of course, if you don't have access to Sora, like a lot of us in the UK and the EU, this doesn't really mean much to you. If that is you, I've created a guide. If you go to aiwithkyle.com, scroll to the bottom, there is a Sora code guide, which tells you how to get in without a code. There's a workaround, or how to find a code, and then how to access Sora even if you're not in the US or Canada. So you can't download the app, but there is a workaround, there is a way to get in. So that walks you through all of the methods, and that is on aiwithkyle.com. Scroll to the bottom, Sora code guide. So hopefully that's useful. Hop over to questions. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Safi. Oh. Don't see any. Cool. Okay, let's have a look at, what should we look at? Yeah, let's have a look at Perplexity. So Perplexity, the people who use Perplexity are die-hard Perplexity users. I don't really use it that much. The reason is the main USP, unique selling point, at least for me, was the fact that it did deep research. And it was the first tool that allowed you to search for a lot of different sources, get information from one place, and that overcame the problem of early artificial intelligence, early LLMs, that they would hallucinate and they wouldn't necessarily give you a source. LLMs still hallucinate, but we have tools to make that better. So Perplexity had a fix, which was basically it would pull from 30, 40 different sources, compare them all, and then compile the results for you, which is really cool. However, now ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, DeepSeek, all of the main models do this. They have a deep research button or a research button. They all have different names. It was basically the same thing. So for me, Perplexity's main usage kind of disappeared. However, they've been adding some really cool additional tools. This one's very specific, but if this is for you, this is going to be exciting. So they've launched something called Perplexity Patents, or Patents, the world's first AI patent research agent that makes IP intelligence accessible to anyone. So if you are in the world where you write patents, I'm going to say patents because patent sounds weird to me, this is going to be very exciting, because the process of working out what's available and whether your idea is unique. I forget the exact criteria, but whether it's unique and valuable, etc., is really difficult because the current systems for finding patents are archaic. This is the same for trademarks. I have not done a patent myself. I have done trademarks though, and it feels like a medieval system trying to work out what's already out there. Therefore, there are lots of companies that help you do this, and they charge you a fee. And with patents in particular, it's a very expensive fee to put together your application, to find out what is existent in the market, to make sure yours is unique, etc., etc. That little industry might have just been demolished by this AI tool. So introducing Perplexity Patents, AI-powered patent search for everyone. Today we're launching Perplexity Patents, the world's first patent research agent that makes IP intelligence accessible for everyone. Patents are an artifact of an old age process, yes. Humans turning curiosity and ingenuity into practical innovations to benefit their fellow citizens, sure, and to make money. Curious people engage with the patent system as both consumers and contributors of knowledge. And here we go. So for decades, patent searchers relied on systems that require precise keyword combinations and knowledge of obscure syntax to perform comprehensive research. Extremely archaic. And it doesn't matter what country you are. All the countries that I've dealt with and had students who are dealing with their IP systems, every single country has this archaic system because it was basically, it used to just be filing cabinets full of these patents and these trademarks, and it hasn't really been updated that much. It's a register, it's a big book of these things. So public search tools feature limited capabilities, yes, while professional platforms are expensive, yes, and require significant training. So what Perplexity have done is they have put in place a new tool. So it's called Perplexity Patents, and it will allow you to cut through a lot of that noise to find out whether your idea is unique, and to help you put together your patent application. I don't know if this is also available for trademarks. That'd be pretty cool too. I don't see why not. And it uses citation-first approach to patent search, allowing users to search for patents without complicated keyword searches. So you don't need to know exactly what it is you're searching for and able to find it. I think that's the key thing here. And it's a beta project available worldwide starting today. So yeah, make sure you go and have a look at that if you work in IP, or if you are an inventor, or if you just want to protect your intellectual property, say for your business. This is going to be a really useful tool because, good God, I wasted weeks putting together a recent trademark, and it should not be that complicated. It really shouldn't. Okay, I'm going to finish up with, this is a bit more technical, but for certain people, well, or even if you're interested, I think this would be useful. So Hugging Face have put together a guide, a very beautiful guide called The Small Training Playbook, The Secrets to Building World-Class LLMs, Large Language Models. So it is technical. I'm not going to avoid that. However, the way that it's written is very accessible, so you can read through it and get an idea of how large language models are put together. Not just kind of the theory, but the actual engineering principles, and how you could do it yourself. And you can use Hugging Face, which is their platform, to do so. And it's a very, very in-depth guide. But it does, from what I've seen, go through an awful lot of the terminology and the concepts, so you could, with enough patience, work your way through and understand how to do it. And there's a lot of code here, but a lot of this code is kind of built into Hugging Face already, or you're just going to copy and paste it into Hugging Face. So whilst this looks incredibly intimidating, I would say if you genuinely wanted to learn how large language models are built, if you wanted to potentially fine-tune one and train one for your business or your personal needs, this would be the place to start. And this just came out yesterday, so it's a very, very up-to-date guide as well. Whether or not you should be building your own large language model is debatable. I would say building one, it's quite resource intensive. Building one as a hobby project, though, to work out how these things are put together, So it's not something that you're going to be using for business. It's not something that you're necessarily going to be deploying or letting people use, but building it as a toy project, much like you'd buy a model kit of a model steam train. That helps you learn the concepts behind steam trains. In the same way, this will help you to do so as well. So you're not necessarily going to deploy it for your business. You're not going to make any money from this. In fact, you're going to have to spend money in order to do it, probably a few $100s. But it's going to at least give you a very good idea of the underlying technologies and how these things work. And therefore, when you read news, when you read about updates, what's happening in the world of AI, you'll be able to understand it in the context of something that you have actually built. And I'm a firm believer in doing rather than just reading and acquiring knowledge. So have a look at it. It is dense, it is technical, but the way it is written is also, it will guide you through step by step by step by step. So have a look at that. It is at Hugging Face. Not that easy to find. If you Google, I'm sure this will turn up, the small SMOL training playbook. Yep, it's the top result. So it does show up on Google. And make sure you bookmark it because that is a very chunky guide. I will also add it into the newsletter. So that's another way to find the link as well. Cool. Thank you so much, everybody. If you are not subscribed to the newsletter, make sure you are, because I give you all these resources. I give you written summaries and then the links to the actual resources so you can follow them up yourself. Also, make sure to subscribe on YouTube. We might be at 8,000 followers. I haven't checked today, and it's loading too slowly. We're on our way to 8,000. I'm hoping to hit 10,000 before the end of the year. We're at 7,923. So close. If anyone has built a YouTube channel before, you know it's a long-term slog. So any support is very, very much appreciated. So make sure you subscribe to the newsletter, totally free, and to the YouTube channel where you'll be able to see everything in high resolution. You can see my screen. You can get past access to all of the news articles that we've done and much, much more. So make sure you subscribe there. I will be back probably next Tuesday. So I'm on holiday right now, which is why what you're seeing behind me is not my normal office space, and I'm traveling back on Monday, so I'll probably resume the lives on Tuesday next week. I hope that is okay. Everyone have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next week. Thank you so much, everyone.